The first waves of retaliation against President Trump's escalating trade war are hitting the U.S., and the president apparently believes the solution is more threats. Today, Trump threatened to impose 200% tariffs on alcohol from the European Union. It's his response to the region's retaliatory 50% tariff on U.S. whiskey. The White House may be downplaying economic fears, but the numbers show Americans are, in fact, afraid. The Dow Jones Industrial Average has lost about 7% of its value this month, and many economists are projecting either slower growth or a coming recession. Well, a Reuters poll conducted this week shows 70% of Americans say the cost of Trump's tariffs will be paid from their own pockets. That same poll found that a majority of Americans believe Trump is being too erratic in his efforts to shake up the U.S. economy. That's why Secretary of State Marco Rubio faces a challenging meeting with the G7 allies this week. Following President Trump's tariffs on steel and aluminum, Rubio arrived in Canada to meet with diplomats from Britain, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, and Japan, where complaints about U.S. policies are certainly expected. Joining me now, Zerlina Maxwell, host of Mornings with Zerlina on Sirius XM, and Edward Luce, chief U.S. columnist for the Financial Times. It is good to see you both. Ed, most of the new import taxes, they affect our allies. Trump keeps responding to those threats with more threats. Where does this end?
Well, that's anybody's guess. I wish I knew the answer. But I think the reason why the stock markets and other markets are reacting much more seriously now than they were even a couple of weeks ago is because they've seen how Trump responds to retaliation by doubling the retaliation. And this 200% threat, well, that quadruples what the EU came back with. They came back with 50%, and Trump had originally been 25%. So they realized Trump is in this to win. He's being absolutist about it. And whilst he might then drop tariffs one day, pretty much inevitably the next day they're back again, and probably at double the price.
Zerlina, I want you to take a listen to what Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said on CNBC. This is from today about the long-term health of the economy.
I'm not concerned about a little bit of volatility over 3 weeks, because if you look over the long term, the reason stocks are a safe and great investment is because you're looking over the long term.
So the markets are in turmoil. A recent poll shows that only 39% of Americans approve of the way that Trump is handling tariffs. How long, Zerlina, before his overall approval takes a hit while the administration waits to see if these tariffs can work?
I think it's going to be something that people are going to start feeling and talking about really soon, right? He ran on lowering prices. He ran on a strong economy. That's really the one issue that is a through line through his 3 election cycles. And I think that when people are not paying less for eggs, when they are not paying less for cars or for their groceries or for their housing, they are going to blame the person in power. That was part of the reason why Joe Biden's approval rating was so low, because people were paying so much money for everyday essentials. And so Donald Trump's the president. He has to hold the bag. And he said that he was going to lower prices on day one. That hasn't happened. Actually, the opposite has happened. And he has to take responsibility for that.
Ed, help me understand something very specific. Why such a focus on alcohol tariffs?
So the Europeans did this before in Trump's first term. They targeted whiskey, bourbon, Harley Davidsons, jeans, as they've done today in the last couple of days, because they are concentrated in red states. And the theory is that will then generate pressure from Republican lawmakers that'll feed into the White House. That's the theory, at least. And Trump's retaliation to that, and he specified France. He singled out France to go for champagne, for cognac, for sort of luxury European drinks, is, I think, aimed at his old acquaintance, Bernard Arnault, the French businessman who owns LVMH, the champagne houses, etc. And I think he thinks if he can wound Arnault, who's the fourth richest man in the world, and I think was there at Trump's inauguration, though I'll have to double check, then Arnault will pressure the French and pressure the Europeans in Brussels to climb down. I'm guessing that's Trump's theory of the case. I'm not sure it'll work, though.
Zerlina, you're spending a lot of time in Europe these days. What are the Europeans you speak with saying about this tariff war?
They don't talk about the tariff war. I think that they are very perplexed as to why we have allowed Donald Trump to go back into the White House and effectively put on a reality show that is chaotic, doesn't make sense. And also, I talked to a lot of people, actually, about why Elon Musk is even there. He's unelected and unaccountable to anybody. And again, I think that what you're seeing is just on its face a level of corruption that anybody can understand, no matter where they live on planet Earth, including here in Europe. So people are not really talking about the tariffs, but they are very much talking about how Donald Trump is in the White House. It's chaotic, and it's a reality show every day. And Elon Musk is dismantling the federal government, and they don't understand why we're allowing that to happen.
Here on planet Earth, Zerlina, though, I think it does depend whether you were living on Earth 1 or Earth 2, as Nicole likes to say. Ed Luce, when Secretary Rubio goes into this meeting with our G7 allies, what is he likely to hear about their concerns over this tariff war?
He's likely to get an earful, and it's going to be 6 versus 1 in the G7. It's going to be absolutely unanimous. You know, Canada and the Europeans and Japan, all of them have the same fears that a tit-for-tat war that keeps escalating will impoverish everybody, including the Americans, weaken the Western alliance, and make no sense in terms of Trump's, as Zerlina was outlining, in terms of Trump's domestic promises. It will lead to increased inflation. And this, of course, is before he's really started to deport undocumented migrants who form such a large share of the food-producing workforce, talking of food prices, and also of home building, of construction, talking of home prices. So he's going to get an earful. The only thing that surprised me that hasn't yet happened, again, referring back to what Zerlina was just saying about Elon Musk, is we haven't yet had retaliatory tariffs from the Europeans, the Canadians, or the Mexicans on Tesla. Tesla is very obvious low-hanging fruit, and I would expect that to come soon.